Record. Yo, what is up? It is your friend, your homie. You see him, Damian Howard here with another segment of Village Talks. Whereas we, caregivers of young people, come together for insight, for inspiration, for real talk. I come to this space today using specifically that language of real talk because when I was first afforded the opportunity to meet our guest, that is exactly what we did. Didn't even have much background knowledge of each other, didn't even really have background knowledge of what we did, but immediately we connected with a kindredness that allowed us to be real, frank, and even vulnerable, right? With the first words that we shared together. So I'm excited, y'all, that now us going beyond that initial conversation, creating this podcast opportunity for you all to glean from the magic that's happening here, y'all, it's about to go down. My brother Devord, go ahead, unmute, introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Devord J. Allen, founder of Pathways to True Freedom Foundation, Dare to Dream, Inc., also Breaking Barriers, Inc. I am a social advocate, community health worker, health and wellness advocate, and facilitator. And I do peer-to-peer work in our communities, underserved communities, BIPOC communities, and marginalized groups. So
Yeah,
that would be me.
one thing I just want to ask you right off the top. I want to basically set it up based on some of my insecurities, and then I want to get a little counsel from you. So, brother, I am somebody who wears multiple hats. I have multiple affiliations. One of them I told you when we first met. The connection that we have with my brother's keeper. I work with a nonprofit organization, and I'm also an ed tech founder, right? So,
Okay.
yeah, sometimes juggling all of those initiatives simultaneously, I convinced myself, like, Damien, you gotta make this more simple for people to understand you and not get lost in all of the things that you do. I just wonder, how have you been able to navigate that? And yeah, like any counsel that you might have for people out here who have multiple hats.
So one of the things is be conscious of your why, right? I always tell people if you're intentional with your choices, not the title, but the choice of why you do a thing, your purpose resonates, right? And it's easier and you stay the course of why you were attached to that thing or why the purpose was why you were called. There's a high burnout rate amongst us who are overly um, like we say, egregious to success, right?
Mm.
And so for most young people, it's multiple irons in the fire. And in order to balance that is you have to be directly attached to that why. And that will resonate and that will carry you so much further than all the things we do. Each thing has to be specific, right? And it has to have its own purpose and meaning for you and the people that you are affiliated with. So that's one of the things that I really focus on personally is why I do this thing. The who I'm already defined. Why is my journey every single day, and it attaches to the work.
You know, So, brother, as you were talking about your why, even ahead of you expressing to us what your why is, there was a level of confidence and, might I even say, competence that exuded through the screen. It literally hit me in a visceral way, a way that I can feel. So, what I would want and invite you to, if you're open, and I assume you would be, is to articulate forwards what is your why. And I believe, by the way, as you even express such, based on what we've already seen, is that we're going to be able to experience the why even beyond the words, right? Even in hearing how you talk about it. So, what is your why, Devore?
My why is directly connected to who we are, the lostness, the hopelessness. And if I could spend any given hour of a day, it would be to encourage and empower others about the goodness of who they are as a human. So much of our community is attached to the brokenness, right? It's amazing how people will resonate with the worst things said about them, But then
Mm,
the moment you tell them how wonderful they are, how unique they are, they shun away from it, right? They don't believe in it. And so my why has directly come from wanting to establish that goodness. Um, because I was never told growing up all the great things that I could do or would do and who I would be. And so once you establish that identification of who you are, your why is it becomes like breathing. It's not something, I hear people say, "Oh, you're a leader."
mm,
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm a man of God. I'm a man who has intention and purpose every single day I get up. And part of that is ensuring that I pour into people who are worthy of knowing the goodness that they have or that they hold in between them. As we were speaking earlier, I just spoke to you about a piece of work that I'm finishing that should be out in January. It's called Activate, man, and it's about awakening the dreamer within. So I'm excited. I'll touch on it a little bit if you give me a chance to. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Activate, awakening the dreamer within. And if I'm not mistaken, that's going to be your first, your excuse me, your fourth text that you're bringing to market, correct?
That's gonna be my this work right here, man. It's probably the most connected since the first one, right? I've always had, I think we as people in the community have a story and we want to share our story. And I think once we're connected to that why we want to share our story, why is it important for people to hear it? I think that that's one of the things. But this work right here, this embodiment of work, is something that I'm super excited for because a lot of the hopelessness is just directly correlated to the fact that the dream died,
Mm,
right? The dream died. And so how do we awaken that? So, but
yeah.
yeah.
So we're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it. I have a question I want to ask specifically oriented to what you told me about your own background and experience, starting in the mental health space, really working a lot and focusing on psychological factors that also contribute to some of the brokenness and some of the even generational or systemic ills that we see in our communities. And I want to now attach a clear and deeply rooted sense of why to mental health and psychological well-being. And I just want to help us to make that connection. When you get that clarity of why, does that then have some type of correlation or positive impact on mental health?
Um, it's my true belief from research and lived expertise that it does. Um, I discovered that American-born African Americans have a high self-level of confidence, right? We believe in ourselves, we believe we can do a thing, but we have a very low level of self-esteem, right?
Mm,
So that in itself takes away the ability to directly impact our decision making, right? We're attached to the aesthetics of our lives versus really doing this work. Uh, there are over 70 million undiagnosed or underdiagnosed um, treatment or people classified as mental health and having mental health issues. And I think in our community, with such stigma about how we were taught, they always say Black people are resilient. A rubber band's resilient until you stretch it out of its intended purpose, and then it breaks, right? So if we don't understand, then how is it possible for us to go further? We look good, but are we good? I don't know if you're old enough to remember, Damien, the Earl Shies of the world, right? They used to paint your car for $99, right? Some
mm,
brothers run down there and they get that $99 paint job, but the engine ain't no good, right? You got
mm.
you got you got blue smoke coming out the tailpipe, and the same thing correlates to your mental health, right? We like the aesthetics, we like to look good, but are we well, right? So that right there.
Real talk. I'm not gonna even lie to you. I don't remember the paint jobs, but I tell you what I do remember and what it takes my mind to my uncle and all of the guys and the early 90s, how they used to have these big old speaker systems in their trunk. You understand? That's rattling your back. I
Yeah.
got hearing issues to this day because of sitting in the backseat of my uncle's car. But his little putt putt Buick could barely, run for a year or so without issues. So, but that speaker system, and to your point, the aesthetics on that joint was looking real nice.
Yeah, until you get up under the hood, right? So
Wow,
that
that's
is
that's an
that.
amazing correlation, right? It's looking good, but when you get under the hood, that's when we really start to see. So, yeah, now I think that's an amazing segue into what this podcast is oriented towards, which is this concept of village. I know that you are in the Minneapolis area, and I don't necessarily know if your answer to this is going to be specific geographically, and or it may be broad, but in your thinking of the questions that I sent you ahead of time, the concept of what we're doing here, I'm curious, how does this concept of village resonate with you?
So the concept of village resonates deeply with me because it embodies the belief that community is essential for growth, right?
Mm,
Um, no one man is an island, right? And just as a village nurtures its members, I believe the responsibility of a community is on its members to care and uplift for one another. And I think that has gone away. You associate or people oftentimes uh, have these lingos and are coming from our communities. And I hate generalizations, so please forgive me when I say these things.
hmm
I'm
hmm
only speaking factual. I'm unapologetic about the facts that we've experienced growing up in our communities. So when we say, "Oh man, that's the crib," right?
mm,
Or I live in the hood, that I'm from that hood, or I'm from that set, right? We've automatically demolished the community.
mm,
So where Big Mama was and Auntie and Uncle and all of them was, they're no longer there because the hood is the representation of where our people has transcended to, right?
mm,
So there's that loss. You need a community that cares for itself and its members.
So that out of or with the opportunity to kind of speak to what village means to you, that last piece, I think what I heard you say is like we're self-sustaining. The resources that are needed for this community to thrive are literally right here within the community. But there needs to be like that openness and that togetherness for us to tap into that. Was I hearing that correctly?
That is absolutely correct. A lot of times you'll hear, I've heard people speak to other ethnicities and their culture, right, and how they um, assimilate, right.
Mm,
But they have a cultural value system that wasn't displaced because they migrated to another place. They've already been ingrained as to who they are. The Unfortunately, the American-born Negro never really had an identification. His identification was always given to him. So therefore, he would assimilate to any system or conform to any system of identification that he could resonate with. You know the Durogs, where we come from to where we are now, and so
mhm,
we perpetuate that mindset. And the village it has to be somewhere where people feel valued and heard and empowered to thrive. Right.
mm.
So without that, you lose that.
So coming from a place of you mentioning historical realities that uniquely have impacted African Americans, and coming from chattel slavery all the way into now, when you think of contemporaneously, what are some of the most major issues, particularly that our youth are faced with? I wonder, like, what stands out in your mind, like. What's going on? What is that barrier, that block that's getting in the way for some of our young people today?
Um, Direct identification of self, man.
Mm,
Because we teach. They have a culture, right? And I'm not speaking about when I'm speaking about culture. I'm not talking about ethnicity. I'm
yeah,
speaking
okay.
about behavior, belief, or mode of operation, right? And so all culture can be toxic if it's not uh, correlated to a point where it produces growth, right? So if I have a young person and I'm following, you have these underdeveloped minds following an uneducated mind, the recipe is disastrous, right? Because
Mm,
that's basically what we had in my era growing up, right? We had these. uh, these people that we looked up to in our communities, and for no reasons. We didn't look up to the people who were going to work every single day. We looked up to the people who were getting it in a way that brought instant gratification to remove suffering or belief of suffering. We
The
didn't.
aesthetics, like you said earlier,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We oh man, what am I going to school for, man?
Yeah,
You know, So the guy on the street wasn't working a job, looked at more prosperous than your parent who was going to work every single day.
yeah.
And then to that role model, man, who show me who you hang around, I'll show you who you are, and that's what it became. Like you just said earlier, the guys, man,
Mm,
we start to conform to the environments that we place ourselves in.
mm,
There's an analogy I want to share with you,
yeah,
uh, and it was something that I taught on probably a week ago. It was amazing that a shark placed in a tank can only grow to about 8 inches, right?
mm,
But in its natural habitat, you place him back in the ocean, he grow to 8 feet.
mm,
Right? So it's simulated to the environment, man. If we have a village that is conducive to growth, those aunties that used to tell you, boy, what you doing standing out here? Get your little self to school. Get gone. You couldn't say nothing back to her, right?
not at all.
That doesn't exist anymore, man.
Yeah.
Auntie ain't no much older than your little sister. You
Mm,
know what I'm saying? So,
hmm.
or your big sister, like it's a different, man. So, yeah.
So, one of the things I like to do in these segments is in an imaginative way, equip our guests with a magic wand. So, this is that part of the segment where you get your magic wand, and as we think of our aspirations for what we hope for in our cities, what we hope for in our nation, and even beyond that, if you had the power to positively impact, or might I say, change one thing that empowers the village in the way that you imagine it to be, just tell us what you would do with that magic wand.
If I had the ability, man, it would to diminish the stigmas that have kept us from being well, right?
Mm,
I would enhance access to resources for our youth, for families, uh, integrate services into our communities that were once present, that were stripped away either by violence or no resource, no direct funding portals um, that could provide education and understanding, and start to reshape the cultural heritage and identification of who we are as a people. Black people are resilient, but we're beautiful, but we're also a broken community right now. We're a broken tribe, right?
mm,
It started out as genocide, and no one needs to identify what genocide is. But I'll break it down for those who might not know. It's one's attempt, or a power's attempt, to wipe out a culture or race of people, right? And that no longer is the issue because that's already been accomplished, right? So now it's fratricide, which is direct relation to a culture or its people wiping out itself. And
mm,
so that is exactly what you're seeing now when people are saying, "Oh, so and so crashed out." Oh, so and so, that those things aren't just happening, man. We got to get to the root cause. So if I had my wand, I would be telling a couple things to our communities. One is lay on somebody's couch, face up, and talk about it. Right. Let's directly look at it because you hear a lot of talk around trauma in the Black community. Yes, we inherited that. Right. We don't have to play victim roles in this country. But we also got to understand that what has directly impacted us back here, right, is directly affecting us up here,
mm,
right? So there's an arrested development period, right, where I can't make moral reasoning or logic decisions to move forward because I'm stuck in the emotion of a thing. So I would really encourage my people to get away from the stigmas associated with talking with someone, with getting help and getting a hand up, and really utilizing the tools and trying to do the work to figure out where you're trying to go and what you want to do, right? Because in 100 years, nobody's saved African American communities. We got to be the help we need. You're a change agent. I'm a change agent. We got to be the change we want to see in our communities, and we got to we gotta invoke that um, in our people, man. And another thing, lastly,
Yeah.
I would demonstrate that there is strength and vulnerability because we've been taught to be strong, right? So that means being vulnerable. We see that as a sign of weakness.
Mm,
There's nothing further than truth, right? There's strength and vulnerability, man. Because with vulnerability comes compassion, it
mm,
comes empathy, and it comes your ability to help another brother. When I see you walk down the street, why do I need to look at you and not speak?
yeah.
Right? We got a lot of issues to address, brother. Like I said, the car looked good, right? but but the engine is raggedy.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there's so much that came out of that. A couple of thoughts. One, I don't know at what point and at what stage in my life something shifted, whereas I would see another, particularly African American male, walking on the street, and I would pass him or he would pass me, and we would not acknowledge each other, at least with a little head nod, right? Like, I don't know, there was just some innate solidarity and resonance that we would have that was just kind of like a common thing, and that has been lost, right? So even as we talk about this thing of village, I don't know, my mind's eye oftentimes goes back to when that just used to be a commonality, and now the experience is quite different. So you just kind of triggered that reminder in my mind. But what I also heard, which is extremely fascinating, is there so much that so many different things that people would do if they had, this imaginative power of this wand. And what I heard you speak to really are mental, innate, like, and even might I even say controllable aspects that if we can get things right within our own psyche, within our own body, then that affords us an opportunity to unlock pathways to true freedom,
Mm,
pathways to economic mobility,
come on.
pathways to strengthen the family structure. But it seems like it all kind of starts with what's going on up here in that mental health piece. So that was very interesting hearing you respond in that way.
As a man thinketh, man, so is he.
Yes.
Right? That's just the truth, man. I live on the principles of that word, but it's true, man. If a person's mental capacity can move them from one trajectory to another, then it tells you it starts with the mind, right? It
Mm,
starts with the thoughts. And what are we thinking about? What are we focusing on? Where are we placing our energies, man? We're human. We're energy beings, right?
mm,
Spiritual beings having a human experience on this earth. But where are we placing that energy? Are we placing it in the circumstances of our lives, right? Or are we really looking at what work am I showing in? That's accountability piece. So that's a whole nother topic that we know it's happened to us, but the question is, what are you doing about it? Right? So that's a whole nother piece, man. I,
yeah.
I just wanted to build off of what you said because I don't think we're taking accountability, man. I don't think our youth has the guidance to really understand that and what's facing young people right now. Um,
Mhm.
is a lack of that, and people want you to give them something, but they don't want to do the work that's required to get to where they're trying to be. And that's one of the things that I love about this work, man. Is I spend every day trying to figure out a way to inspire, motivate, change, and cultivate a mindset centered around growth, man.
Yeah, so wow, just a lot of power, a lot of power, a lot of and a lot of nuggets of insightful nuggets, a lot of just take homes that we're going to get from this session and this time with you that requires that you and I we're going to have to figure out what does the second go round of this, then the trilogy.
What's
we might
up?
even we might even have to co-host this joy because again, this was very fruitful, and I really appreciate our time. Unfortunately, the confines of the current structure of this segment is such, whereas we're at a point where I need to give you the final word. And as a part of whatever you want to leave us with, I am really interested to hear more about Activate, awakening the dreamer within. Let us know whatever it is you want to tell us about that body of work and close it however you want to close off your segment.
So what I'd really like people to know is that somewhere inside you, male, female, however you identify, there was a dream, right? And at some point, that dream began to diminish, right? The flame went out. And what activate represents is what happened to that dream. How did I allow certain life circumstances to define the outcome for my future? Am I connected to one season and evaluating it as my life's journey? And Activate speaks to awakening that. How do we? Where's that kid that wanted to be that superhero, that basketball player? Where's that young lady that wanted uh, to go to school for nursing or be a doctor? Or what happened to the dream, right? And I want all people to know the goodness that's available through spirituality, through identification of self, and how can you move without understanding who you are first. And I think that's the biggest piece Activate talks about is I gotta understand who I am, what took place, and what do I want to do about it. So
Yeah,
I,
and is Activate is the work already published? Is it coming out? Where can we find it?
so you will find it on uh, every platform, even the Kindle, mid-January. So I'm excited for that, and thank you for that opportunity to plug that work. But you can also find Devord J. Allen, Becoming More Than Your Life Experiences. You can find it on Amazon. Devord J. Allen, Risen from the Ashes, Life After the Game, and also the workbook for community health workers, person-centered care. Devord Allen, Devord J. Allen, Activate. So there's some work out there, man, to really start the thinking process for our people, man. Because if we don't educate, man, we got to get nosy about everything that concerns us, as one of my mentors say, man. You better get nosy because you minding other people's business and yours is falling by the wayside.
Mm.
To all my young men that are still struggling and struggle to figure it out, uh, I say this in kind. Don't spend your life building a street credibility and failing at the game of life.
Mm.
So,
So that was a complete mic drop that we didn't even know we needed, but when we got it, we felt it in a real way. Hey, I tried to warn y'all on the front end that this is going to be a power pack session. I know and trust that every viewer who caught this for the duration of the segment, that you were blessed by this in the same way that I was blessed. Devord and I are absolutely going to have some conversation offline to figure out, like I said, how do we keep this conversation going? Because it's a necessary conversation. It's a powerful and might I even say transformative one. Hey, y'all. So that was episode 9 of Village Talks. In whatever way you all want to follow up with either myself or Devord, just let us know wherever you're finding this on Spotify, YouTube, on our social media platforms. Go ahead and comment below, leave us a message. Let us know how we can further be hopeful in amplifying the importance of a village in a way that matters to you in a way that matters to your community. All right, y'all. Peace out.